that this is really about how the Malaysian government tried to procure 2 submarines from France. And a whole scandal exploded in this process. It's a procurement process. It's just a process to actually buy 2 battleships. And this was back in 2002. Now what happened many years after, fast forward, in 2009, Suaram filed a complaint before the French judiciary. Why did we do that? We did that because we were observing the trial of the murdered Mongolian national Altantuya Shaariibuu, and her trial ended very suddenly with the acquittal of the key suspect. His name is Abdul Razak Baginda. He was not called to his defense, and there were many unanswered questions surrounding her death. Who is she? Until today, we don't really know. But all we know is that she is linked to the scandal. She is linked to the procurement process. What was her role? Was she an interpreter? Was she the lover of Razak Baginda? Did she have an affair with anyone else in the procurement process? Who was she really? No one really knows. It is still being investigated. But when we monitored the way in which our courts addressed the issue of the murder of Altantuya, I think there were more questions than answers. And when parliamentarians actually asked the questions in Parliament, they got no answers. In fact, there were contradictory statements between the Deputy Defence Minister and the Minister of Defence over her death and over the payment of 114.9 million euro, which, if you convert, amounts to about $500 million Malaysian ringgit. That money was paid to a company called Perimeca. When parliamentarians asked the question of what the money was paid up for, it said it is for coordination and support services. So general. So we had no breakdown of what it was. So that was one of the motivations for us to actually find a way outside Malaysia to get the truth. The other thing that we tried to do was we had a meeting with MACC, the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, and we said, I think it's really necessary, absolutely necessary, to open a file on the Scropene scandal, because the payment of 114.9 million euro, or $500 million ringgit, has not been accounted for, and parliamentarians and Malaysians in general have not gotten any answers. So MACC, until today, friends, you all know, have not opened an investigation into this. Then we looked at the Malaysian police. We also looked at the fact that in order to get any answers to this, it would mean we will need to secure and obtain the contract between DCNS, which is the French shipbuilding company, and the Malaysian government. And do you think we'd be able to get it in Malaysia? No. Why? Because it is under the Official Secrets Act. So no way we could do it. So along the way, we met up with a couple of international NGO activists, and we talked to them about this, about what is it that we can do. And some of them suggested, let me introduce you to some French lawyers who are taking up a case in Pakistan. A case which is very similar to Malaysia, where the Pakistani government bought 12 submarines, some Scropene class, some different kinds of submarines from the French government. And very similarly, the commissions which were promised to the Pakistani government were not delivered. And what happened was, when the French engineers went to build the docks and the pelabuhan for the submarines, they were bombed. They were traveling in a bus, and there was a bomb that was placed in the bus, and 11 French engineers were killed. And so there was an ongoing inquiry on the Pakistani case, and it was those lawyers that were taking up the Pakistani case, when they heard that we were actually looking to find answers between the French company DCN, same company, but this time selling 2 submarines to the Malaysian government. They said, okay, let's just try, file an inquiry and see where it goes. And that's what happened. That's what happened in 2009. And where are we now? 2012. So in 2009, December, we filed an inquiry, and really, honestly, friends, we never thought that this would really take us to where we are today. But it has. And why has it come so far? It has come so far because the public prosecutors in France, when they opened the investigation, they uncovered so much information which have produced more questions than answers. They have produced so many telling evidence and documentation that have actually left us with our mouths open, overwhelmed by the fact that so many different facts have actually been hidden from us. Now, how did these French prosecutors get access to many of the documents that we are now exposing in details? What they did was they raided the DCNS office and they actually seized several important documents, including the contract between the Malaysian government and DCNS. They also looked at the bank statements, the accounts of the different companies, the different lists of companies, and some confidential reports that were prepared for the French government by some independent consultants and all that. So as a result of that, this is what we actually got. So in 2012 March, on the 16th of March, we were informed that there was sufficient prima facie evidence to take this case to the next level of the judiciary. And so the Tribunal de Grande Instance in France began a judicial inquiry. Okay, so you will see that there's a whole propaganda war going on online to discredit some of the information that has come out. To help confuse you into believing that some of the information coming from France is inaccurate, and to actually make Suaram look like we are a bunch of liars fabricating this information. But I'm actually very grateful for this opportunity presented to us here to tell you that no matter what, no matter how intense the attacks are going to get, and no matter what happens to Suaram and what they would do to the organization, or even to those of us who stand up to speak out on the findings of the case, there's just one thing to say: the inquiry is ongoing. The inquiry is going on. There is nothing that will stop the inquiry. Of course, the French judiciary is not perfect. They're nothing like the Malaysian judiciary, of course. But we know that the inquiry will go on regardless of the pressure that Suaram undergoes if they try to deregister us or try to personally harm some of us. The inquiry will still go on. And I believe that it is this realization that has caused a tremendous sense of panic with the Malaysian government, and especially to the people involved directly in the procurement process. Now, why has this become such a major scandal? Why has this become one of the largest corruption scandals in the country? We call it the Great Malaysian Robbery. Why? The Great Malaysian Robbery because we're talking about our Malaysian taxpayers' money. We're talking about your money, we're talking about my money, we're talking about ordinary people's money. When we pay taxes and we entrust the government to actually use the money in an accountable fashion. And this is what we get: a corruption of the highest order, and a scandal that has produced so many questions in which the government has refused to answer. And if you know that as recently as the last parliamentary sitting, the defense minister had actually denied, he outrightly denied that the Malaysian government has any knowledge of the second company that has been exposed in the scandal. So This is very, very serious because as far as we Malaysians are concerned, if the inquiry in France did not open, we would know nothing about Terasasi. And it is such a shame that we have to depend on a foreign court, a foreign judicial system to tell us this, when our government and our Malaysian judiciary are telling us that there is nothing. We do not know anything about Terasasi. We do not have any interaction with them. So it is a very major crime. Now, the other point, since I have very few minutes left, is to talk to you about the global scale of this corruption scandal. It does not just involve France and Malaysia. It does not. Now, why? The whole bribery issue, the whole issue of illegal bribes surfaced because France had signed the OECD Convention in 2002. The OECD Convention is actually an anti-bribery convention. It disallows public officials to accept bribes from third world countries in which France actually enters into trade dealings with. So because the Malaysian procurement process also happened in 2002, some of the French officials were finding other ways to circumvent the OECD Convention. So they opened up companies in smaller Mediterranean and European countries to facilitate payments to ensure that the bribes went to the middle agencies and that the practices of the past continue. So we have a company, if you go further down, that company called GFEN. There was an article in Malaysia Kini a couple of weeks ago that suggested that GFEN made payments for the travel of Altantuya Shaariibuu and Abdul Razak Baginda. And these payments were made through the company called GFEN. It is a small company in Malta. For payments that could not be justified in the actual procurement process because they were purportedly going to different countries, holidaying, going to France, and so on. And these payments were paid out by GFEN. So actually, friends, you and I paid for Altantuya and Baginda trips around the world because they used our taxpayers' money. Okay? And so GFEN is the one that made the payments. And again, when GFEN makes the payments, it will not be seen in France. And so there was another way to circumvent the OECD Convention. Now there are two other companies that are being investigated. Just to simplify the thing, it is Technoma in Belgium and Eurolux in Luxembourg. These companies were also used as go-between companies to ensure that payments were made. And so the story does not end here. The Scorpene Resurfaces has just began resurfacing. And I can reassure you that as the judges in France continue their investigation, and as they continue to try witnesses both from France and from Malaysia, we will continue to be shocked at the scale and at the devastation of how corruption has just destroyed the entire administration that is running our country today. And this Scopene scandal is just one procurement process. It's an eye-opener. And I think we as Malaysians, we have a role to play. We have to make sure that there is no more corruption in this country. And how do we do that? We have to ensure that the people we vote into power, into parliament, are those that are clean, those that will commit to ensure that there will be a clean government come the next general elections. So I think the onus lies on you and on me to ensure that we elect the most clean, the most accountable type of administration that we want to see today.